Well, the big question now that the Parental Rights and Education bill has been signed into law is how will it impact your local school and, more importantly, students in the classroom? CBS 12's Danielle Duras joins us now with that part of the story. Danielle?
Well, the governor's press conference featured several examples of material that he says this law is targeting. One of them, a book that a local parent says a teacher read to her son's second grade classroom right here in Palm Beach County.
This school and how they handled things completely shattered my trust. And so
Erin Lovely pulled her son out of Marsh Point Elementary School in Palm Beach Gardens after she says his second grade teacher read this book to the class. Call Me Max is described by the author, a transgender man himself, as a, quote, gentle introduction to the subject of transgender identities. He adds that it's intended for first and second graders. Governor DeSantis points to Call Me Max as an example of young children learning about gender identity and sexual orientation at a very young age, something the Parental Rights and Education law seeks to stop in pre-K through third grade in public schools. CBS 12 News checked state curriculum, and there's no recommendation in Florida standards for these topics before high school. The state teachers union says that's typical in most districts.
It's not something that teachers are going out there saying, I'm going to teach about someone being gay, or I'm going to teach about transgender. It's not in our curriculum, and it's not something that teachers are doing as a regular, especially in our earlier grades, really all the way through middle school.
Andrew Spar, president of the Florida Education Association, says the State Department of Education needs to come out with clear guidance for teachers and administrators on how to handle questions and conversations that touch on gender and sexuality in primary grades. The law includes language that says beyond third grade, instruction on gender identity and sexual preference should be, quote, age appropriate. That, the union says, leaves a lot of room for interpretation.
I think it will result in chaos. And chaos is not good in our public schools.
The law also requires schools to notify parents of health services offered to students. The governor singled out Martin County School District, claiming it offered gender transition plans that could be implemented without a parent's consent. A spokesperson for Martin County Schools disputed that, saying their policies and procedures are already aligned with this new legislation. We did just hear back minutes ago from the Palm Beach School District. We asked them for comments about that book that was discussed in the governor's press conference. And here's what they said in part, that this law does not take effect until July 2022. They say the district will undertake a comprehensive curriculum review in advance, and they will remove any books or materials that do not align with the new legislation.
The Parental Rights and Education Act signing comes as the local gay community celebrated Palm Beach Pride this past weekend. Our Andrew Lofholm has reaction today from the gay community and why they're calling this a big step backwards. Andrew?
We are in Lake Worth Beach, just outside of the Compass Center, which puts on that annual Pride Festival. They also provide services to the local LGBTQ community. And quite frankly, they're disappointed that the governor signed this into law, saying it could be especially hurtful for the young people that they serve, who in so many cases already have a hard time finding their own identity in and out of the home. Monday afternoon, Governor Ron DeSantis signed into law a ban on teaching pre-K through third graders about gender identity and sexual preference.
That sends the message to kids who are questioning their sexual orientation or their gender identity that it's not okay.
The bill signing happened to come the day after Palm Beach County's largest annual LGBTQ event, Pride Festival weekend in Lake Worth Beach, an event sponsored by the Compass Community Center to encourage people to feel good about themselves.
These young kids, they're so impressionable, and we're not trying to change kids' minds about who they are. We're just willing to operate a safe space so that they can be who they are.
Compass leaders Julie Seaver and Adrienne Percival say it's the message this bill sends that discussing those issues is wrong, that can be damaging, even if it's limited to age groups that typically wouldn't talk about that stuff in class anyway.
Suicide is already the second cause of death for young people, and LGBTQ youth are 4 times more likely to attempt suicide or think about suicide, than their heterosexual peers. So this is potentially has real harm associated with it.
Another issue opponents of the legislation raise involves informing parents about health information the school may have. The concern is that this could lead to outing LGBTQ children to their parents.
If one or both parents are struggling with their child's coming out process, then that's going to be a detriment to their mental health and their well-being.
However, the bill does include a provision which allows a school to withhold that kind of information if there's a concern it could lead to abuse, neglect, or abandonment. Now, as much as the reaction from the LGBT community has been negative, they say that a bright spot in this is across the country, that the support has been mostly positive and supportive.
I'm a positive thinker, so we just went with it. We quickly started hearing questionable things. Parents were being called bullies because we were emailing her too much, and I'm like, we had a lot of questions, so yes, we were emailing her a lot. My son's behavior started to change a little bit. He was very frustrated with me, more so than normal. Later, other things came up, disturbing things about medical choices that I think should be between the family. The kids were given extra credit if they made these medical choices. Second grade, mind you. Yes, but here's where I drew the line. Thanksgiving morning, he chose to tell me on Thanksgiving. We were sitting there and he tells me about a book that she had read to the class called Call Me Max. It's this one here. If you've read the book at all, I could cry thinking about it. There was no permission slip given, no heads up and, hey, how do you feel about this? Nothing. There was somebody next door that gave a permission slip out to parents for James and the Giant Peach. I'm like, what about that one? After she finished the book, so he had to sit there and listen to the whole thing. After she finished the book, he raised his hand and he said, no, this isn't right. This is not who God made you to be. And she disagreed with him and said, no, you can be whatever you want to be if you just have an imagination. And so I'm like, well, yeah, you can be a doctor, a lawyer, president, but God doesn't make mistakes, and he didn't make a mistake when he made you. So under this bill, which again, obviously most people have not read it. I don't think a lot of people have. It protects the fundamental rights of parents to make choices regarding the upbringing and the control of their children. It prohibits school districts from doing what happened in ours, and prohibits classroom discussion about sexual orientation and gender identity in a second grade classroom. So needless to say, we never went back. We never went back to that class. He was moved to a third person at this point. We had to switch him. I was like, he's not going back, but it was not an easy choice. It was not an easy process. The principal was not easy to work with in this.